Welcome to the Respectfully Great podcast. I am your host, Johnny Reed, and today we have a wonderful episode scheduled. I am pumped. I am ecstatic. More importantly, I am ready for this conversation. Today, I, I, I might be a little bit fearful. Nah, I'm just kidding with you, man. We are not dealing with fear today. We are actually kicking fear out. Why? Because today's episode is all about confidence. Yes, yes. We are talking about building up that confidence and actually you reaching and maximizing on your fullest potential because fear is no longer a hindrance. Fear is being kicked out by us developing the skill sets to be able to match that energy of fear and actually overcome that thing we call quote unquote fear, which is false evidence appearing real. It cannot live in our house, can't live in our domain, and no longer live in our minds. So today, it's all about building up that confidence to do such. Let me take a quick sip of this thing right here. It's good old lemonade, good old iced tea, half and half, but back at it. So, fear. Most people aren't stuck because they lack a knack, a talent, or a gift. They're stuck because fear has trained them to live beneath their potential. Fear has robbed people of opportunities, confidence, peace, relationships, wealth, purpose, and even the courage to become themselves. But, aha, aha moment. What if confidence isn't a personality trait? Hmm. Hmm. What if it's a skill forged through pressure, discomfort, repetition, and resistance? Pondering, pondering. In this episode, we're exposing the hidden ways fear controls our lives and building a real blueprint to break free from insecurity, silent self doubt, be quiet, self doubt, and transform hesitation into power. Yes, it's going to be a powerful episode today. This is one of the ones. I'm super glad, I'm super pumped, and I'm super ecstatic that you are here with us today. And before we get started, give yourself a round of applause. Yes, yes, I feel good today, man. Let me know how you feel today. Please let it be known down in the chat. Let me know in real time because it's important that we always do self-check. We do check-ins, right? I think it's a wellness check for all of us. I think it's very, very important that we check on one another. So for me, if I must say today, I'm in good spirits. I find ways to continuously push myself and put myself in a space to not necessarily just be happy, but be at peace. I think that in this world that we living in is always going to be ebbs and flows. There's always ups and downs. So you got to be able to manage your emotions. And I think that if you're always on a constant high, the one time that you may feel a slight uh uh uh, uh low, right? Or your energy disintegrates for a little bit, or it drops down a little bit. It could be very, very problematic if you're always living on a high. If you're always down, that energy to be bursted up, I think it's very, very important. So we need a fine balance of what's going on in our worlds and our lives in order to sustain and maintain and actually live life to the fullest. So I think anything on a one extremity can be complicated. I'm not gonna say necessarily good, bad, or indifferent because it's subjective, right? It's really opinionated. It's about how you feel and how you are designed in your world. But for me and my experiences and from the things I've seen, the things I watch, I know and I understand that in this world that we are living in, we got to find ways to cope and keeping a fine balance, even though there are times and seasons where we're not balanced. I'm saying when it comes to our emotions, living on a super high or super low, I think that just having that balance of feeling good, bad, and indifferent at times just give us so much breeding grounds to learn and grow because there are moments in my emotions where I'm not at peak happiness. I learned so much about myself. I learned so much about the environment. There are times and seasons where I'm on an emotional high. And in those moments, I find ways to have appreciation for that moment, but also understand that that moment is only a moment. It's not a constant because the only thing constant in this world is change. So getting real, real familiar with these things allow us to actually become the person that we are desired to be. There are other things in our world as we know it, that may play a part in us reaching our fullest potential. And the fear thing today, I think is very, very important that we highlight uh this terminology, this word, fear. If you were to give it a definition, this is what fear means in the Webster's dictionary, right? Fear is a powerful, unpleasant emotion triggered by the perception of danger, pain, or harm. There's a very highlighted word, a key word that stands out to me. That's very, very apparent. To me, that word is perception. Perception. What you perceive, you believe. Everything in this world is dealing with some degree of perception, right? Of course, we have truth, we have false narratives, we have belief systems, but I want to share with you that it's mainly how you perceive things which creates your reality. Your reality may be different and differ from someone else's based on one's own perception. So there's a lot of power within that. There's a lot of hindrance if we input and we download the wrong things to our software. If we use words and limiting words, right? And systems and belief systems that are not of embodying the best or exuding the best or empowering words, it tends to limit one's own reach and beliefs around how they want to experience life. I'm a prime proponent of it because I've experienced things in my life that I want to share with you today, um, of some of these ills and some of these mindsets that kept me at the bottom when it comes to how I see the world. There were points and times in my world where I felt the world was against me. And the reason being is because I blamed everything and everyone for some of the misfortunes, quote unquote, that I call misfortunes, some of the mindsets or actually emotions and feelings. When I felt down, it was everybody else's fault instead of my own. I equated to maybe some of my financial situations, some of my relationships, some of my career moves. There were so many other things that played on me where I kept looking outside of self, and it played a major part on who I am today. And I want to be able to bring that to the forefront to add another layer of um, who I am, and want to actually keep dissecting these things and actually give you a point of contention so you can actually look at oneself and say, you know what, where are areas in my life where I can make improvement? How can I experience in this world, in this body, in this physical, in this avatar, another experience? When we start to look at the paths that we take, some of the decisions that we make, all of these things are based on our own perception. But if we start to enhance our own perception, there are wonderful things that we can experience because we are making choices in our lives that actually align with who we are and purpose. So we know that purpose is created. We know that there are so many things that can lead us down certain paths. We don't know the outcome, right, of things, but we also know the inputs that we put in can have a predictability about a more favorable outcome than not, due to the fact of past experiences, through testimonials of other people. We start to see and recognize patterns. We start to see things in a way. When we start to understand who we are, we can start to recognize things in our own lives relative to how nature is. And I think about these things on so many levels, which we're going to unfold and unpack today, which I think is a beautiful thing. So I commend you guys again for being here and align with us as we go through this channel and go through this transformation, because today is really going to be transformational. And I think that once we get started, it's more of a reflective thing. I'm just a medium, right? And here I want to break down just some of the experiences and some of the woes and some of the things that we all share, right? Maybe on different levels, because we all said everything is subjective. It's really about perspective. But I know that me, uh, with my experiences, when I have these conversations with other people, when I watch and I see there's some of the things that plaguing that's plaguing our whole community, not for the better. Some of these things and questions, some of these things are actually entering our homes and it's affecting us one way or another. So, with that being said, I want to have dialogue around this to make sure that we are hitting some of these key components that would allow us to address these issues, because we know that one of the fearful tactics that fear has amongst us, even though we know it's false evidence appearing real, it has us in a space to where we unwilling to confront some of these things that may cause us some discomfort. And as we stated, that discomfort, that resilience, that resistance, all of those things, all of those spaces will allow the growth to take place. And I want to highlight that as a primary thing to for us to look at throughout this dialogue today. Oh man, I'm feeling good. Man, I feel great, great, great. Hope you are doing well as well. Um, yeah, let's get started. Let's get started, right? So the fear barrier between you and your potential. There's something that's in the middle that is stopping us from reaching our fullest potential. So let me give a little bit of a background on some of the things that I was fearful of. Right, as we talked about earlier, we give the definition of fear, which is fear is a powerful, unpleasant emotion triggered by the perception of danger, pain, or harm. So we have a fear and a perception to some level, some degree of pain, harm, or danger. So that means necessarily that may not be true because we're anticipating the outcome of some of these things when we all know the only thing you control is the input, the outcome of things, cause and effect. If you do this, then that will occur, cause and effect. To what degree, we can't determine. So as we build up this mindset, let's get a real genuine understanding of what's going on. We are putting this energy out there and we are already planting a seed of fear, harm, danger already before anything transpired. That type of thinking has to change. But let me give you some of the things that I was fearful in my life that I came up against where I started to plant seeds that necessarily didn't serve me at the highest degree. So for me, right? Um, one of the things early on in my life where I planted some seeds of negativity and not favorable outcomes was when I came home from out of the prison system, right? I told myself I may not be qualified to go into the working field and actually be a productive individual because of quote unquote the stain on my jacket, right? Because of my criminal history, because of my background. Now I am labeled. So, with that being said, since I had this label that I was putting on myself, although the reality is I do have a stain on my jacket, but I allow that and allow the definitions and the preconceived notions of someone else, an entity, to determine how I should feel about oneself. This is where the problems kicked in at. As I started to go through my journey, there were things that I was hindering myself on, such as not applying for the best qualified jobs that I think I'm qualified for because of having this disdain or stain on my jacket. I felt like this was like a bad omen. This right here was like a non-favorable badge of honor because it really wasn't. It was a badge of shame. It was what I quote unquote considered it, right? And it took me years being fully transparent. Everybody's transformational journey may be different. The reason why it took me so long because um, I was just in a fearful state about my history, right? I didn't want to accept that as um something that could serve me to a higher and greater good. Over time, I kept using those same excuses. Actually, one of my own vulnerabilities, I was scared to confront myself in a manner of saying, you know what? That is no one else's fault that some of the decisions that you made in your life led you to be in this position to have this type of stain on your jacket at this point in your life. What are you going to do now? Are you going to forever live on the auspice of someone else's determination on who you are or perception of who you are? Meanwhile, I know inside of me, I have a heart of gold. I have the working ability. I have work ethic. I have discipline. There's so many great qualities that I already knew that I possess. but I was weighing it against the fear. And every time I come up against fear, no matter what great qualities I possessed and I knew I had of oneself, I will fall short. I will fall short. And for years, this progressed and progressed. And then there was a switch, there was a turn. There was something else that transpired in my life that allowed me to overcome that uh that stain or disdain on my jacket, right? I outgrew that because I became the person and still transforming into the person that I desired to be. And it took a lot of confidence. It took a lot of exposure. It took a lot of exposure and admitting to, okay, although this is part of my life, that's only a temporary state, a temporary time, one memorable time. That's not going to determine the rest of my life because there's so many great qualities and great things that I do that I want to share with the world because ultimately I made some bad decisions and it had consequences for them. But that's not the end all be all. There's so many things that I have to offer that are great that I know other people can benefit from. And I have to have the confidence to go out there and be able to offer that to my best ability. It took me a long time to get there. What I'm saying to you is that I was in those shoes, right? It doesn't only stop there. There are many other things, plethora of things that I had embodied the mindset of dealing with some level of fear. And today, what I want to share with you is that I'm not going to allow that continuously to have a burden on who I am and what I represent. And I don't want that for you as well. So this is why we are here expounding about it, talking about it, going to unpack it in so many layers to make sure that we have the right tools to go and fix this issue because there's so many people in the world that are living in fear and there are different variations of fear. Last week we had talked about trauma. Some people live in a trauma. Some people are living in a financial um, living in a financial woes or living in a financial astuteness or lack thereof. Some people are living in the wrong relationships, abusive relationships. Some people are living in the stigmas and the 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 concepts and mind frames geared around people, places, and things that tell you who you need to be versus who you know who you are. Besides who you know who you are, so these are some of the things that I want to actually really, really address because I know that there's another turn of that leaf to where we can have a more fulfilling life and experience it the way that we desire to experience and live it. Right. So that's one of the things that we're going to continuously break down throughout this episode. Right. Um, let's go with starting here. What are some of the other areas in our lives where we have some level of fear? One of the things that I used to fear a lot, right? And I'm gonna bring this up really quick. Let's go with mm, let's go with this right here, right? If you see this picture right here, you see me with a bunch of mics surrounding me, right? I used to feel like I was afraid of public speaking, right? I was on Front Street. I had a lot to say, but when the time for me to speak the truth, I actually got muted and I was scared, shaking in my boots, shaking in my boots. The reason being is because I didn't have the confidence to know that I'm validated because I was waiting on everybody else's approval for me to be who I am. And I lived in that space, in that realm for a long time. As I explained before, I was a people pleaser, right? So everything that I had to say, I was looking and seeking validation from other people to give me permission to speak about a particular thing. Meaning that when someone else said something that whether I agreed or disagreed with, I agreed with them. And then when it came to me speaking my true mind, I got stage fright, as you see in this picture right here. I froze up. I was fearful. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to react. I didn't know how to respond. I didn't know what I should or shouldn't say because I didn't build up my own voice. Over time, I built up my own voice. Over time, I built up the confidence. Over time, I developed the skill sets because most of us equate it to being a personality thing. And there are different variations of people. Some people have an innate ability to come up and be in front of a crowd and speak how they felt, right? But for me, on the other hand, although I had a lot to say publicly, I was fearful. I didn't want to say it in front of other people. I didn't really want to share my real perspectives in my mind and my thoughts and my belief systems because I always looked and seek validation from other people to give me that approval. And their approval was simply them speaking their mind first. And then once they spoke their mind, I attached myself to their mind and their thoughts and their perspectives. I learned over time that was very, very bad. I learned over time at those moments, it was the perfect conditions for me to learn because I didn't know what I didn't know until I stepped outside of that. So I've seen what it's like to be a people pleaser. Yes, 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 yes. To the degree where I was at fault, right? I did so much to where I was on the back end receiving almost all of the backlash, the ill will feelings, emotionally distraught because there are things that I totally disagreed with, but I actually agreed with it in the moment to please and not be ostracized and outcasted by the other fellow people or crowd of individuals that was around. And I came to grips and understood that your voice is powerful, your mind is powerful, your perceptions are powerful, your testimonials are powerful, your life, your breathing life has validation. And there's so many things that we can learn from one another, but it starts with oneself. So this picture right here is just a resemblance of a time frame and a place where I've experienced not having my own voice. Although I had a lot of outlets to go and speak how I felt, I didn't have the confidence to go out there and approach it from that perspective and from that manner. So what I learned to do is develop skill. And these are some of the ways that I've learned to do it. And we're going to continuously shape and reframe about who we are desired to be. Every day we are writing our future, right? In the moment, we are writing our future. So what happened and what transpired in the past is still there, but we can rewrite that and we actually could transform that because we could write a different narrative, a different story to how I felt about that particular thing then. Right now, as you've seen, what I said was, although that was a moment in time where I felt I didn't have a voice, but it also was the breeding grounds for me to learn so much more about myself on what it's like not to have that voice, to now developing it to where I can look back on those moments and say, hey, I had to feel what that was like in order to grow out of that. There are moments and times to where we grow into things and eventually grow out of it. Once we become more aware, we learn and grow. We can build up that confidence and develop the skill set to actually overcome some of the biggest things that hinder us and stop us from actually moving forward and reaching and maximizing on our potential. So I really wanted to highlight that right there. And I think it's important that I've done such, right? So yeah, that's one of those pictures right there that I really, really wanted to bring up. And I hope that was something that you could take, something that you can utilize, something that you can um uh use it as a tool, right? Understand that you're not the only one that have been in a place where your voice was silenced. And the person that was silencing you wasn't even another personnel, wasn't the environment, it was you, right? Because you haven't developed your own voice. You haven't got confidence within your own voice. You haven't found or developed it in a way to where you say, you know what? My thoughts, my feelings, and emotions are validated, right? And I want to expound on that continuously. I want to explore that. I want to be able to put myself in different domains and cross that mindset across different domains. So I'll be able to develop a voice and maybe at home with my family. I'll be able to develop a voice when it comes to my business. Develop a voice when I deal with my customers. Develop a voice when I deal with my colleagues. Develop a voice when it comes to my relationships. Develop a voice when it comes to some level of mentorship, whether I'm a mentee or a mentor, be able to have that voice to express some of these sentiments behind who I am. Because in those questions, the qualified questions that you ask depends on the quality of response that you get. I'm gonna share something too really quick. So me and my cousin earlier, my cousin Black was speaking earlier, and we were exchanging some posts, and he sent me a post about with Elon Musk, and he was talking about his finances and how much his time is worth. We also know that time is infinitely more valuable than money, right? Because in a fair exchange, if somebody said I give you $100 million today, you say, I take the money, I take the money. But he said under one premise, the premise is that you will have to be unalive by tomorrow. Most people say, I think I pass up on 100 M's, right? Other people may say, yeah, but I think majority of the world would say, I don't want to because I really can't enjoy the money. I can't experience it. So the things that I do right now, although on a grandiose scale, right, on a minute scale compared to the grandiose 100 million, it really ain't worth it because me having this breathing existence is more valuable to me than that $100 million. So long story short, I was reading the post and listening to um uh 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 Elon Musk, right? And he was talking about the money, right? And he was just talking about his time. He really wasn't talking about the money, but his time. He was just saying that how much money he could potentially make within his hour, an hour of his time. He could make a plethora of money. And he said beyond the money, he said what he had learned over time, it's about the context and which way we frame our questions and our decisions is what's going to determine where we end up in our lives. And I thought that was super, super profound. I learned something, and I heard this elsewhere. We come into this world looking like our mothers and our fathers, and we leave looking like our decisions. So when I heard this past um, reference that I had, that I forgot where I got it from, then hearing Elon say something very, very similar about the qualified questions that we ask and the context in which we put them in, and how we frame them depends on the response, and the answers that we are looking for are most important. It made me think about what are the hard questions are we framing in context to our lives. Most of that is hidden behind the fear because we don't ask ourselves the hard questions. We don't take time out for ourselves to say, hey, what if I did this today? Where will my life end up at? Sometimes it's not only the fear of doing the thing, it may be the fear of actually being successful at it. Because once you become successful, or you have an act, or you have that knack, or you have that gift, and you exercise that to now where you develop a skill set, you have a certain level of responsibility. And with that responsibility, we have a moral obligation to go out there and execute to our fullest potential. So a lot of things are intertwined with us learning a new thing and doing a new thing versus living in that same space of fear and saying, you know what? I think I'm very comfortable right now. I don't want to step outside of this space because there are unknown territories, unfamiliar territories that I've yet to explore. And over there, it may come with a level of work that I'm not willing to do because I don't want to do the work for one, or if I go in this place or space and I actually be successful, I have a moral obligation to upkeep that and actually explore it to where I can maximize my potential and then do acts of service to where I can help another. And some people say, I really don't want to do that work. So instead of applying, we just sit back and watch, and then we just be the cookie cutter individual with a microwavable mindset to where we just do everything that everybody else do and not actually stretch ourselves beyond our own limits. So that was one of those things where I've seen in my life where I have experienced it, right? I could have stayed in that same space of not wanting to grow. But when I recognized those breeding grounds for me to grow, I said, okay, let's go. When Elon Musk said, it's the context of how he frames these questions, it came to a moral obligation for him to say, you know what, let's take time out and think about the hard things. Let's put actual thought into it. Let's develop that level of agency and prudence to make not only good decisions but wise decisions because of the wisdom that I already acquired. Most of us are unwilling to do some of those things, and this is what's keeping us stuck. This is the resistance. This is why we can't get past some of those fearful tactics that are plaguing on us in our lives and really keeping us as a hindrance and holding us down. So that's what I want to make apparent and make you aware of, that everybody goes through these things on various levels. It doesn't matter your financial status. It doesn't matter your relationship status. It doesn't matter your personal status. Everybody is going through life, and on various levels. We also know that it's perspective and how we shape and how we actually put these questions into context that gives us the quality of responses or answers that we are looking for. So when we're talking about fear, most people don't bring up this topic or this term because they say I'm not fearful of nothing. But then when you are put to the test to do some of the things when nobody else is around, to do the disciplinary things, to build up the habit of doing a particular thing or the repetition of doing the thing, most people, you know, leave it up for someone else to do, not ourselves, because we are too complacent in our own right? Because we have free will. So most of us just say, you know what, I do that or I do that when I get to it. I heard from Alex Hormozy, he said, don't put off what you can do today for tomorrow. A lot of times we don't stretch ourselves, we don't push hard enough, we don't do enough, and then now we wondering why our lives aren't turning out the way that we desire to turn out, and it's all based on the output, the initial intent, the things that we are actually putting ourselves in this space to challenge ourselves with. We're not doing these things, and we just going day by day and say, you know what, hey, I can give the excuse on why my life ain't turning around, and most of us live in our excuses. And today is one of those days to where we can take a look at that and evaluate that and say, you know what is causing me that fear? What are some of the things that you are fearful of? Take a time out, a second out to say, what is it in my life that's stopping me from growing or being the best version of myself? And ideally, it's not that big of a deal when we actually sit down and analyze it. It's just that we never gave it that much thought because every time the topic come up, we avoid it. So we don't actually sit with it for a while, think about it, evaluate it, and actually try to problem solve and say, you know what, how can I overcome this thing right here? Most of the time, we already have the solutions within, but we don't want to explore them because it comes with another level of responsibility. And this is where um, we can learn how to shift that, right? We can learn how to pivot from that point and say, you know what, let's do something like simply just making the bed every day to where we can start develop a habit of just being responsible. It could start there. Every day when I get up in the morning, I'm going to do one or two, three things before I leave the house and go on about my day. I did that with oneself. I came up with some combination codes. I call it my combination codes. I come up with these things because I know it allows me to start my day off on a productive note. It allows me to develop the skill set of being disciplined. It also gives me something to push forward when I set the right frequency in my own mind, in my own body. I say, you know what? If I do these 3, 4 things every morning before I step outside of this door, I already created a winning space for me to go out there and execute because I already done pretty much the 3 or 4 things that are mandatory for me to do today. I already knocked that out early in the morning, and then the rest of the day I have nothing but free range to be creative in my approach and still go out there and execute. But if I could take care of those things before I even leave my home, it's already a winning day. So that's what I've done in order to allow myself to get out of that space of of living under fear. I actually confronted it by doing things to oppose of it, to rise above it, right? So I started to combat fear with actually the approach of facing it. Something very, very key. They have something called exposure therapy, where literally that's what they do. They have exposure therapy where they put you in front of the fear, the thing that you fear the most, and then you have an opportunity to actually confront that, and you can actually grow from that standpoint. Simply like this, right? Give this example right here. You see how we have a little tree, right, coming through the crack, right? And in its shadow, you see the actual tree or what it could potentially be. That's most of us in our spaces, in our minds, in our worlds. We think, okay, little old me, right? How can I go in the world and actually grow to be erect, to be this big, blossomy tree with all of the leaves, all of the branches, and strong roots that connect me to who I am and what I desire to be? It starts with you recognizing with oneself, hey, I have an unlimited amount of potential that I haven't tapped into yet. This shows right here, this diagram shows that you can be bigger than your actual size if you possess that in mindset. This branch right here, this little tree right here, this twig right here, looks at itself in the shadow as something great. This reminds me of the potential that we have. Although you're in this space right now, you don't think much of self. We could change that with perception. We could change that with our own ideology to say, you know what, I got a belief system surrounding me that I know I can be bigger than anything possible. Not bigger than what other people put on me, bigger than any environment that may serve me, because internally I'm continuously building that up. So although the world haven't got exposed to who I am yet, although the environment haven't got exposed to who I'm really in internally, although my belief system haven't shown, the things haven't transpired as of yet in the physical, even though we know everything that's in the physical starts with the creation of thought first. So once I start to build it up in thought, then the manifestation process actually starts to happen, and that becomes a reality. So this picture, this diagram right here, represents that you have to possess the mindset that you are bigger than already, and then you have to live and act out from that perspective. You have to go in the real world and say, you know, I'm going to operate from this perspective of being bigger in mind first. And then from that point, that turns your mind start to conspire to make that a reality. And this is where we can start taking form and shape of actually manifesting and becoming who we are desired to be. No longer are we living under fear, because we said this is a rose that came between the crack. This is a twig. This is a vine that's rising between the cracks and the ills of life. Although this is concrete, I found a way to rise through the concrete. How does a rose, how does a twig, a tree, a leaf, a branch come up erect through the concrete? It's about believing that there's a possibility and all possibilities are possible first. Knowing. There's the knowing, you know? And this is what it represents right here. So I love this picture. I love this diagram because it gives me confirmation of how we see oneself is what matters the most. How we see oneself is what matters the most. And this is one of the other areas where we can start breaking down the fear factor. We can break down that fear factor based off perception, based off exposure therapy, where we come and confront that fear. Hey, people say that I'm not great. Display your greatness. Come in front of it. And we're not talking about they, because we're not just fighting the world, we fighting self. So now when I say they, I mean you. So when you confront yourself, say, you know what? I'm not gonna live and be submissive and docile in my approach. I'm going to be great. I'm going to be bigger than a problem. I'm going to be a problem solver. Like Elon said, you know what? I'm actually put thought into who I want to be and actually go out in the real world and execute that. Let's qualify that. I start to be qualified once I start to put down on paper and in mindset who I am. And then once you put that into manifestation, once you put that into the ether, the world start to conspire and work towards that. You start to magnetize that thought and that process for you to be that person that you desire to be. I love that picture right there. Powerful, powerful, powerful. Let's go to this right here, right? Bring this up really quick. Most people think fear is emotional, but fear becomes environmental. Fear becomes environmental. It changes how people speak, how they dress, what opportunities they pursue, what risks they avoid, how much money they believe they deserve, what rooms they walk into, whether they ask questions, whether they use their voice. All of the things that we had talked about earlier, from finding our voice, from the people, the environment, the way we dress, the way we pursue, the money, all of these things that we actually hinted on a little bit earlier is what we're talking about when you talk about what fear is. It's not just an emotional thing, it becomes an environmental thing. Fear creates an invisible ceiling over someone's life. That ceiling that you just can't break through. That when you need a world of inertia to burst through the next ozone layer, we don't have enough fuel in our tank in order to do such, because we're living still under that cap and under that ceiling of fear. Areas where fear permeates: finances. We talked about money. Fear of investing, fear of starting a business, fear of changing your worth, fear of financial responsibility, fear of poverty repeating itself. Poverty stricken mindsets breeds poverty. Fear of investing, fear, lack of astutness when it comes to your finances. Fear of starting a business means that you're going to continuously work for someone else. Fear of changing your worth, meaning that if I have a low value system on oneself, there's impossible ways that there's no possible way I'd be able to add more value to my real finances, because my self-worth, I put myself on the bottom of the totem pole. I don't feel like I'm worthy of. So if I already feel like I'm not someone of that worth or caliber, it won't enter my life. That's what we're talking about. Health. Some people fear the discipline, don't want to go to the gym, don't want to work out. Some people fear of seeing the truth in the mirror. They fear standing in front of that mirror and having that self audit, having that talk, asking yourself that question, or looking at oneself and say, you know what, there's some insecurities there, but I'm willing to face it. That's what that looks like. uh Fear of medical diagnoses, right? Some people are afraid to go to the doctor, right? Actually, I'm going to a doctor's appointment tomorrow. Actually, tomorrow, no, Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday. What's today? Yeah, Wednesday. I'm going to get surgery, right? But this only came about because I started to take my health a little bit more serious, and I've been going back and forth to the doctor. I used to fear the doctor. I didn't want to go to the doctor, and I started to figure out I had a bunch of underlying elements that I was experiencing due to the lack of me going to get proper treatment and evaluation. So that's one of the areas where I suffered as well, along with the finances, health as well. I talked about career, just we were talking about right now. Fear of leadership, standing in front of people, personnel, environments, and taking leadership to say, I can be a qualified and responsible person. That's what that looks like. Fear of public speaking. You see the diagram earlier with me standing with a whole bunch of mics around, and I'm scared to speak my truth. That's what I look like. Fear of rejection. I don't want to be told no. So I don't apply. I don't put out. I was like that when it came to social media. So fearful because I thought I had to put the right post. The right post is every post when it's coming from pure intentions. Everything else from that point can be tweaked, right? Because there's better way of learning marketing and skills, etc., that I can apply when I develop the skill set. But initially, that if you're speaking your truth and you're coming from the heart, when you actually post it, it's already perfect. It's already perfect. That's what I used to fear. Still, of the application of doing the thing, right? Fear of failure, right? I didn't want to fail in front of the public. Most people aren't uh afraid of failing. I mean, most people aren't afraid of failing. They just afraid of failing in public. They don't want other people to see their failures. I had to learn to deal with that as well. I had to fall flat on my face a bunch of times to get comfortable with it, because I had this persona about oneself that, hey, I'm in. Listen, man. There's nothing that can make me feel or test me to say that I'm not that personnel. And then when the numbers don't reflect, and it's not about numbers, but when I feel that if I'm not validated through certain mediums or certain validations from other people, or the numbers, or family and friends, or coworkers, or business partners, or someone that I just seen elsewhere, if that person doesn't have the acknowledgement, I felt like I was a failure. So I used to fear the fact of actually applying and putting myself on Front Street. I just didn't want to fail in front of other people because I dealt with failure. I just didn't want other people to see my failure. And that's one of the areas where I had to overcome that fear as well and say, you know what? The only way that I can actually overcome is by addressing head on. And that's what I've done over time, and continuously still apply myself in those areas to do such. Let's talk about relationships. Another one, fear of vulnerability. You're scared because, hey, I was hurt before. So I don't want to go into this thing and being hurt again. Some of the closest people to you are the ones that have hurt you, because there's a love factor that's attached to that. So you say, you know what? If this person is willing to hurt me as much as I love them, that means that the whole world is out there to get me. So I built up this wall to not allow anybody in. So now, when it comes to relationships, I was afraid to be vulnerable. So I'm tough Johnny. Can't nobody break me down. If somebody done something to me, I'm gonna do it 2 or 3 times to them, just to validate for that one hurt. And in the whole time, I already have the mindset of planting um, unfavorable seeds to make me go out there and do some things to get back for things I've seen or heard, or if something had transpired. Now I have all the validation to do such because I was hurt or scorned before in past relationships, friendships, businesses. I was scorned before, so now my trust factor is out the window. I had to learn how to be vulnerable all over again, to put myself in territory for things to transpire. But it's all about the perception. I had to plant the right seeds in the midst of stop thinking about people's out to get me. I had to learn to do that all over again. I had to build that trust over again. I had to say, you know what, I got to take chances. I got to be able to be willing. I actually started to speak about having the right people in my place in my spaces. And over time, the right people will come and show up. There are people always watching, seeking, wanting to attach. People that's actually want to out there build alliances, build up relationships and friendships. There's so much of that out there in real time. And I know that we can get around that if we plant those seeds. We're not going to, we only reap what we harvest, right? So whatever seed that you plant, you're going to get back, because we know that this world is dealing with cause and effect, not just karmatic energy, because people say everything's just karma, karma, karma. What I'm learning is that sometimes karma is not good or bad, right? Something that I'm speaking of that I know to be more on the lines of truth versus karma. It's just cause and effect. If you do a particular thing, it breeds a certain outcome. So I know that me planting the seeds, although I was a good person, and I tried to stand morally right against certain things, just because you're a good person, that doesn't equate to financial wealth. Financial wealth requires financial literacy. How many good people that you see out there just have some financial, you know, situations going on, and they're great people. So what that told me is that just because karmatic energy, karma, I think karma, if you want to equate it to doing to others as done to you, I think that's something that you have to exude all the time. Personally, I feel like being a pleasurable person, to be around somebody that just speaks their truth and make an environment comfortable enough to have open communication with you and your loved ones. I think that's a great qualifiable thing to make you a great friend, a great peer, a great partner. I think those things qualify you, but it also doesn't qualify you to be financially astute. You need financial literacy to be financially astute. And that's why I started to learn how to distinguish between the two, from karmatic things versus cause and effect. And I think that became powerful in my life because it put the onus back on me, on a responsibility to go out in the real world and execute, not just rely on the faith of just being a good person. And that was one of the toughest things that I had to learn how to do, not just rely on the good qualities of being a good human being. I think that's what you're supposed to do, right? Some people choose to do different, but we know in the real world there are people in this world that we quote unquote call a-holes, and they're financially booming, super wealth financially. So if the tipping scale was just based on being good or bad, that's not necessarily true for financial gain. So what I do is I just work on me continuously and understand that whatever I do, being a proponent of action, everything, speak, watch, and do, speak these things into existence, watch it, think about it, and then actually take actionary steps in order to acquire the thing. It's a combination of it all. And I knew that there's work that I have to do just because that's what is required in order to become a professional in any other domain. It requires the skill, time, and energy put into that thing. So I think that's powerful. We talked about identity, fear of becoming different. Most people just want to be, liked, cookie cutter mindset. That was me, people pleasing. Fear of standing out. That's one of the things that I didn't mind though. Uh, Over time, I grew to say, you know what, I don't mind standing alone. And actually, believe it or not, I find a lot of comfort having I find comfort with being with oneself. I always felt like that. But when it came to group settings, I always felt the need and the act to just be a part of. And I think being able to stand out on is one of those qualities that will allow you to gain so much leverage, because you can take yourself out of the picture and evaluate things from another perspective, which give you more insight. And I think that's powerful. Um, Fear of losing old versions of self, letting some of those cells of you be unalived and dissipate, go somewhere else other than it's like a snake shedding its skin, right? In the sense of, in order for new growth and a new skin to come out, you got to shed out the old, out with the old, in with the new. So we talked about growing into things and growing out of things. The new version of you have to let go of some of that old version of you. That's what we're talking about, which is super, super powerful. Fear of outgrowing environments. Fear of outgrowing environments. Sometimes the space that you occupy, you completed everything that you needed to do in that space and environment. Now it's time to go and challenge yourself in another domain. Got to go somewhere else. Got to take your journey on the road, and you got to go challenge oneself, because here there's no more growth. Stagnation. Stagnation. Yeah, powerful, man. Let's take a quick commercial break, and we will be right back after these messages. Peace, beloveds. Thank you for tuning in to the Respectfully Great podcast. I'm your host, Johnny Reed, and I appreciate your continuous support. Do you know that over 80% of the people that watch our channel aren't subscribed? By subscribing to our channel, you give us the opportunity to bring on more guests to add more value to our channel. To join our growing community, head over to respectfullygreat.com, sign up for our email list to get exclusive updates on empowering blogs, as well as the latest and greatest in Respectfully Great fashion. Once again, it's nothing but big love, and we value your commitment. Yeah, loved ones. Thank you, guys. I'm gonna give yourself a round of applause for staying with us and being in tune and tapped in. Absolutely, absolutely. So let's break down some stages of someone lacking confidence, right? What does that look like ideally? They avoid eye contact. So you never catch someone looking in the eye. They going everywhere else but looking you dead in the eye. That's someone that lacks confidence, avoidance, right? Some of the things that they avoid is eye contact. Challenges. Some people avoid challenges. Some people say, you know what, I'm unwilling to put myself in unfamiliar territory. I'm good on that. Leadership. Some people don't want to step in that leadership role. So they say, you know what, hey, I could do without. I just follow and continuously follow, even though they know they can lead, they just choose not to. Responsibility. Hey, I'm unwilling to be responsible. That's why fear of actually becoming successful is one of those major things people resist, right? They really don't apply themselves on the area because they know they have a knack or maybe really good at a particular thing, and then that will come with a level of responsibility that they are unwilling to attach themselves to and actually take on that leadership role to be responsible for a particular thing. Criticism. People aren't up for criticism. Some people say, yo, I don't want to be criticized. Don't say nothing about me. I don't want to hear nothing, because you say something about me, I got 3-4 things to say about you, right? And that's not the approach. Gary Vee said, get around people that love you enough to tell you the truth. And when people tell you the truth, you can take that criticism as constructive criticism and not just so much of critique to say, I'm going to bash you. Sometimes when they're coming from excuse me, like my brother Floody Jules said, when they come from your trusted advisors, your group of individuals that you can call one another and say, you know what, hey, did you do that thing you said you were going to do? Or hey, I need to pull you up by your bootstraps and say, yo, let's get going. Or somebody say, hey, you know what, I have a shoulder to lean on. I know you got tough times going on right now. Take a chill pill break. Let's congregate about it and see where we can go from here, or to be each other's uh, therapists. Therapy, we have open communication to where we can speak about some of the things that may be drowning us down, and then find ways to build up that confidence to go approach life from another perspective to be more productive. So I think that's one of the things that we can do and learn from being in those spaces of avoidance, right? We can learn how to trust one another and build up alliances and understand that, hey, maybe I need help. Admitting that you need help, Instead of avoiding these things, say, hey, you know what? I think I'm at a point in time in my life where I need some help. That's what that looks like. Self doubt. A lot of people deal with self doubt, right? It's internal voices, the voices inside of one's mind that say, hey, you can't do that. You're not qualified. I've been there. What if I fail? Huh, I've seen that before. What if they laugh? Look at him, look at her. They terrible, they suck, they trash, they pop, 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 pop. You know, I'm not ready yet. So we sit down and we constantly preparedness, right? We say proper preparation prevents poor performance. But what happens if you continuously doing proper preparation prevents poor performance? Proper preparation prevents poor performance. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. And only thing you're doing is just continuously preparing without taking action. That turns into procrastination, right? So I'm not ready yet. That's what that looks like. Someone else can do it better. So now we comparing ourselves to other people and personnel. We don't want to do that. We want to say, okay, am I better than the yesterday's me? Am I better than the yesterday's me? That is the question you need to ask oneself. Self doubt rehearses defeat before life even begins. Say that one more time. Self doubt rehearses defeat. It means that you replay it, you say it over and over. Actually, you get up with the acceptance speech and you say, defeat is going to happen. That's what you say. And you rehearse that. Defeat is going to happen. Let me say that one more time. Ladies and gentlemen, defeat is going to happen. That's what that looks like. We want to avoid that. That's what self doubt looks like. You rehearse the defeat. You got to stop planting those seeds. You can't plant the seeds of defeat, prosperity, growth, empowerment, empowering language like the Black's Law Dictionary, empowering alive language. That's what we have to start using. We do a lot of comparisons. We talked about that. Um, uh, let's talk about small wins, though, right? We talked about all of the things that hinder us. How about small wins? Confidence begins through proof, right? Proof that you can do and acquire a thing. So for me, prime example, the way I started to build my confidence up, even on this platform here, right? I started to count my wins. I started to recognize my wins. I did a number system to where I could recognize, hey, you've came a long way. You have a long ways to go. But I could look back and think about my progression and say, it's not enough. But what I do is I count every win as a win. Now, I may not celebrate it on a grandiose scale like it's the end all be all because I still set my standard high. And I feel like there's so much great things that I can accomplish. So I don't want to get complacent, but I do recognize that those small wins exist. And this would allow me to build upon that, right? Take the small win, no matter how big or small, count it, write it down, put it in your book, put it somewhere that you can see and say, you know what, I won today. My very first check that I received in my business, I framed it. Now there's so many more checks that I know I need to get because that's my first check that I received just actually through my business. And I said from here on out, I know what that check looks like, but I want to increase those numbers tenfold, right? I want to be able to add more zeros to that. I want to be able to put this somewhere else where I say, hey, I got my first $1 million check. I made my first $1 million. And then from there, once I get that one in, I frame that and I say, okay, let's go for the 10 or whatever number I desire, right? Because it may not even be that much for other people or even myself, right? I'm just saying hypothetically, I've learned to count my wins. And that's one way and one form that I do it is that, okay, you know what? Hey, I made my bed 7 days in a row when I just started the process, right? I missed a couple here and there, cool, but I beat 7 in a row. Count that win because it counts because that's the building blocks to allow you to feel confident to go out there and accomplish more. It's powerful. Speaking up one time, when you had your voice silenced and you felt like you didn't have a voice, try it one time. Speak up for the one time from your perspective of truth, and then you see the difference. Posting posting content despite fear. Hey, I'm posting up this actual post, although this may not get all of the likes and the highlights and people sharing and all that, but this post is meaningful to me. And it's a piece of content that I want to represent me because I want to show up the true me, right? So what I do is I post that content, whether somebody like or dislike, because I've done that out of the preconceived notion that I've done something to break me out of my comfort zone. not the most likable thing, not the one I anticipate to get the most hits and likes, and everybody say, "Oh, that's the one." Now I'm doing the ones that people will say, "I would never like that." You know why? Because it ain't for them. It's for the people that it's for. So if it's the one person that see it, acknowledge it, and say, "You know what? That impacted me and changed my life." I'm in it for the transformational things in other people's lives, because I know if it hit home for me, it may cause a level of discomfort. So I did the unthinkable. I went against the status quo. I went against the norm to go and do something that's very uncomfortable to make me step outside of my comfort zone to impact somebody else's life as well as mine. So I'm willing to do those things. That one post that's meaningful. Done that. Saving money consistently. That's one of those things when that money come and goes. I did this actually. It's funny, man, because me and my cousin talk all the time, me and Black, and we ran the numbers on the statistics, right? About different groups and races of people of how long money stays within their community. So we seen the Asian race, right? Is the money circulates within their community 28 to 30 times, if I could remember. That was that status. Then it said we seen it in the Jewish community. It circulated from 20 to 22 days in the Jewish community. When it circulated through the Caucasian community, I think it was from like 17, 20 days or something like that. And then when it came to the African American or the Black race, it said that the money actually circulates within our community 6 to 24 hours. Don't you see the disparaging gap, right, between that? In other communities and races of people, 20 something days, say on average, uh 17, 18 days in other communities. And then the African American or Black races, the statistic shows that it stays within our communities from 6 to 24 hours. So when we talking about saving money consistently, that's a big gap that our people are um, under the helm of, right? We under some teachings, some financial teachings that's not favorable to how we can invest in our future. So that's alarming. So one thing that I've learned to do is say, you know what? I don't like that statistic. So what I have to do is I have to be more disciplined with oneself. The change starts with you. We not be able to change the world like Tupac said. Tupac said that although I may not be able to change the world, but I will be able to spark the mind that does so. So for me, is if I take those necessary steps to change me, like Charleston White says all the time, look in the mirror and change that person in the mirror first before you change anybody. And when you leave that mirror, don't turn around and put your back towards the mirror. Walk backwards from that mirror to keep your eye and understand that everything that's attached to the world around you starts with you. So if you stay on course and making sure that the change that you want to see in the world you become first, then everything else around you will start to change. And I thought that was one of the most powerful things that we can learn about how we do and what we want to experience and the change that we want to see happen in real time starts with us. So when you constantly remind yourself of that level of responsibility of me being the person and seeking that change continuously of self, me just keep refining oneself and doing those self audits and becoming the person that I desire, eventually I start to change the things around me. Super powerful. Confidence grows when the brain sees evidence. So we got to show ourselves. We got to have those wins. We have to count them. We have to show evidence of this thing can be possible, right? We can look at examples all around us. We can look at other people in our communities. We can see people that look like us or don't look like us that's on the same trajectory when it comes to premise and purpose. We can see people in the spaces in the field of our expertise. We can evaluate, not comparing ourselves to be like them. Ultimately, we're just saying that, hey, if they have done it, that means that's a possibility. And I know it could be a possibility for me. I have to just put that on the table as an option. Like B. Simone said, put that on the table so it can be an option. All possibilities are possible. I first have to put on the table for it to be an option, for it to be feasible and accomplishable. So ideally, that's what we have to do. We have to make sure that the evidence is real. not the false evidence appearing real, not the fear, but actual evidence that this can be accomplished. And then from that point, we should work on magic by constantly exercising and working towards that goal to become the thing that can acquire, become the person to acquire the thing, you know? There's something else that I really, really want to highlight, and I'm gonna show it now, which is very, very powerful. So, I came across this story with this young gentleman, and his name is Xavier Dillard, and he's a 22-year-old um, black male, and he actually is in the Guinness Book World of Records for a major accomplishment. And I think it's only right that we share his story, and I think that we all can learn from his experience and his story. And I want you to check it out firsthand for oneself. So let's get into the story really, really quick. It's a small segment that I want to put up, and we can really, really get tapped in to see how one can pull themselves up and just do the unthinkable.
To like sets of or
On this back.
ago in my friend's basement. I'm better than him at every other exercise except pull-ups. Like I hate pull-ups and he loves pull-ups and I couldn't stand it. I'm very competitive. So after we tied, I spent every day training pull-ups. I started with doing 4 sets of 12 pull-ups, and then after every workout, like a couple weeks later, I switched it to like sets of or 5 by the minute for 300. My biggest training week would probably be 2,400 pull-ups in 4 hours every day of the week. I'd say just not trying to quit. I could barely see. I was tearing up. I was blurry vision. Like I thought I was dying. But for some reason, I said I wanted this record so bad. I just had to keep going.
Wow. Wow. Man, that is powerful. I hope. All right, let's unpack that really quick, right? So let me read the caption. 22-year-old Virginia streamer Xavier Dillard, aka Tater Master, sets Guinness World Record after completing more than 12,000 pull-ups in 24 hours. 12,412 to be exact, beating former record holder Enrique Zapata of Mexico, which he had done 12,345. So you can say, give or take, Xavier did about 100 more, right? 90 something more, right? Ideally, though, what he has said within his interview, right, is that him and his friend ideally was better than him at doing pull-ups, just a better athlete, right? His competitive spirit didn't allow him to stop there. He said, although my friend and we have healthy competition is better than me, I'm going to work my butt off to outbeat him. In the midst of him working diligently and pushing himself, not only did he outpace his friend, but he actually set a world record for the most pull-ups in a 24-hour pull-up. First of all, people staying up for 24 hours in itself, most people can't stay up 24 hours, let alone be exercising for the 24 hours and actually hit a milestone of doing over 12,000 pull-ups. Unimaginable, right? His diligence, his effort, it didn't happen overnight. He literally said that he would do sets of 12, 4 sets of 12 daily. So you think about 12, 24, 36, 48. That's only 48 pull-ups in one day. 48 pull-ups to amount to 12,000 pull-ups in a 24-hour period. Think about the numbers. 48 versus 12,000. He started at doing 48. Then he amounted within 2 years to 12,000. It shows us that anything is possible. Anything is possible. The belief has to start with you. Xavier belief started within himself. Xavier accomplished something that most people won't be able to accomplish. Maybe they don't have that desire to do such. But the beauty of this and what we can learn from Xavier is that in any domain that we choose to put our time, energy, resources, and effort, it's unthinkable on what we can accomplish. He started at the bottom, being second to his friend, to actually now setting a world record in the Guinness Book World of Records. What records are you setting for oneself in your world? What record are you setting for you in your life? There's some records that can be broken, like generational curses. That's a record that you can break. Generational curses. That's a record that you can break. Generational wealth is a record that you can break. Financial literacy is a record that you can break. There's so many records that you can break if you sit down and put the time, energy, and effort towards it. I think that right there alone just gave me the confidence to say that although I'm on this trajectory and I'm on this path, although it's going to be hard, it's going to be blood, it's going to be sweat, it's going to be tears, it's going to be pain, it's going to be hardship. There are going to be times where I felt like I will be unalived. Xavier said there came to a point in his life where he felt like he's going to be unalived on his journey, and he accomplished it. Sometimes we have to go to those dark and dwell in those spaces where we may feel like there's no point of return. I remember Will Smith was running on a treadmill and he said, listen, there's only two things that's going to happen if somebody races me on this treadmill. Is either I'm going to beat you or I'm going to be unalive during the process. That's the only two outcomes. I'm going to beat you, you're going to quit first, or I'm going to be unalived while we run on this treadmill. That's the same mindset Xavier had. Xavier said, I'm going to put my mind, body, energy through it in order to reach the goal that most people are unwilling to go and accomplish. For one, it may not be their goal, but also they may not be willing to put in that level of work. So they would never see or reach that amount of accolade. And that reward is not just the external. I'm talking about from within. To dig that deep from within inside and say, you know what? I'm going to go out there and do the hard thing. He have done that, trained diligently, pushed, put effort, maximized his potential. That's the greatness that we all have. You have it as well. And only thing that's stopping us is that fear, that false evidence of being real. We can overcome that by being creative in our approach, by being diligent in our approach, by being disciplined in our approach, with the willingness to say that I'm not going to stop at no cost, by giving yourself permission to say that this is a possibility. Your life can change today because it's possible to do such, but you got to declare that. You have to declare that. Nobody in the world is going to buy excuses for you and how you want to live and experience your life. If you choose to make certain decisions in your life, like Elon said, then the results you get are going to be what they are. So if you want to get better, be better, and do better, how about we put a lot of effort into the questions that we ask ourselves? Just put more time into what we want to change and put more effort into what we want to change. And then that qualified result, we'll be able to show and see it. We'll be able to see that result. There's so many great things that can transpire from us just being diligent in our approach. And I just want to use Xavier as a wonderful example because that's a young brother that is an inspiration to me. Just being able to see what he amounted to and how far he have gone, how hard he trained, how long he had trained, the work that he had put in. I know there's nothing on this planet that I can accomplish. Let's give Xavier a round of applause for that too, man. He deserve it. Xavier deserve it. Powerful, man. Greatness. Greatness, greatness, greatness. Greatness. Um, let's just highlight some of the things really quick that he have accomplished. The level of achievement it required: pain tolerance, mental resilience, repetition, focus, emotional endurance, confidence under exhaustion, refusal to quit. That's what Xavier had undergone. Every pull up was a conversation with resistance. It was a conversation with resistance. Every pull up was a conversation with resistance. Mm, man, that's powerful. Man, that's powerful. This becomes the perfect metaphor for life. Most people quit mentally long before they quit physically. It's a mental game. Before it becomes physical, it's a mental game. Mental. True confidence isn't loud. It's developed through surviving resistance repeatedly. One more time. True confidence isn't loud. It's developed through surviving resistance repeatedly. Oh my gosh. His accomplishments approves his accomplishments proves something powerful. Human potential is often trapped between mental barriers long before physical ones. Read that one more time. His accomplishments proves something powerful. Human potential is often trapped behind mental barriers long before physical ones. Man, that's dope. Man, that's super powerful. Man, we better get out of here, right? I have some closing statements, and we're gonna go back to our duties of being prosperous, great people, and exercising our right to be great people and maximize our potential. That's what we're gonna go back to after these closing thoughts on our behalf. Um, how about we can imagine walking into rooms confidently, imagine speaking clearly, imagine pursuing dreams boldly. Imagine loving openly. Imagine creating fearlessly. Imagine living without constant self doubt. Imagine that. Fear steals possibility. Confidence restores access to life. The goal is not becoming fearless. The goal is becoming courageous despite the fear. Oh, yeah. Read that one more time. The goal is not to become fearless. The goal is becoming courageous despite the fear. Although I'm scared, although I may deal with some level of self doubt, I'm going to accomplish the thing because I am bigger than a problem. That's what that looks like. Courage is an action while fear is present. Courage is the action while fear is present. And eventually, the life you once feared becomes the life you live naturally. In closing, confidence is earned evidence. One more time. In closing, confidence is earned evidence. When you are confident, you earn that. That's the evidence. You have earned that. Woo-hoo. Every difficult conversation, every risk, every attempt, every failure survived, every uncomfortable repetition, it all becomes proof. Everything that you go through becomes your proof. All your testimonials, everything that you experience becomes your proof. Loved ones, you do not become confident before action. You become confident because of action. And maybe the greatest tragedy in life is not failure. It's it's I don't want to say the word because they censor it, but it's unaliving with potential that fear never allowed you to breathe. It's unaliving with the potential, being unalived, with the potential that fear never allowed you to breathe. Man, has this been a powerful episode? Give you a thumbs up, like, share, subscribe. If you are feeling this episode, if this falls in the category of you overcoming, if we had discussed some of the ills that plague on us in our lives, in our environments, in our communities, please let it be known within the chat. Let us know, share your thoughts, because we really want to know. It's important that we actually have this open dialogue and making sure that we have a safe space for you to express how you feel, because we're all learning from one another. Here is just one of the mediums to get out the message, and together as a collective, we share these thoughts, these minds. As a collective, we brainstorm and figure out, okay, what's working, what's not working. Hey, I've done this, and you have done that, and then how can we come together to make to make this something that's bigger for our community that we can learn from. We shared so many things today, and we unpacked it the best way that we can. Next time we're gonna come back to the drawing board with some more, and then we're gonna evaluate how our life has transpired and took shape and form from this point moving forward. So every day we can keep checking in with oneself, making sure that we got those combination codes before we leave our house, make sure that we got more signal to noise ratio, we're blocking out those distractions, we're getting more comfortable with who we are, we're getting uncomfortable in our approach to make sure that we're doing things to stretch our minds beyond the unimaginable. So I thank you guys for sharing your time, your energy, and your wisdom with us. Sharing your sentiment, sharing your voice. It's important that you share it because you have a story to tell. And I know I need to learn from each and every one of you, and the world need to hear from each and every one of you because you are valued. We talked about counting those wins. We're talking about how do we make sure we build up the confidence is that we stack up those experiences and we say, you know what, hey, every one thing that I've experienced, it counts towards something. It counts towards something. Let me put that into my in my bag of tricks to make sure that I can go forward and be in purpose. It said the glimpse of evidence that things are working, or just the evidence that these things are possible. That gives us the confidence to go out there with that approach to make sure that we're doing our job to become the person to acquire the thing. So everything counts. Every experience, every testimonial, every transaction, good, bad, or indifferent, all of this is the validation that this thing is real. So when you're dealing with some of the woes and you're dealing with some of the wins and you're dealing with the evidence that it's possible, it all counts in the grand scheme of things because it's letting us know that this domain right here requires someone like you to impede in this space to make an impact because ultimately you're going to have an approach and a way of doing things that's going to help other people as well as yourself. You're going to learn so much about you. You're going to build up that level of confidence and reassurance that your life is purposeful, and we're creating that through every moment, every transaction, every time, every instance, every experience. It all counts. So we don't want you to give up on oneself. We want you to rise to the occasion, become that leader, become confident by approaching our fear, have that exposure therapy where you say, no, I'm coming in front of it. The things that whoever they are, say that you can't do in the days, people, places, things, environment, that step in that space and say that you can't. We're going to break down those barriers by approaching it from the manner of saying, you know what, I'm qualified. I built myself up. Every transaction qualifies me. My experience qualifies me. My willingness to go out there and try and put effort and actually accomplish and plant those great seeds makes me qualified, makes me qualifiable, right? So I'm gonna enter this domain with the intentions of being great by me simply planting these seeds of greatness continuously. Man, it's been a powerful, powerful episode. This is our 60-second episode. Um, and we love you guys, man. Every Tuesday. This is coming out on Tuesday. Excuse me. Uh yeah, tap in. Every Tuesday is a new date. We're still going live every Thursday on our social media platforms. So we're going 2 weeks, twice out of the week. We dropping new pieces of content. Although we be able to break down some of the other content that we have out there, but at least two pieces of new content from different segments will be dropping at least, and then continuously every day we dropping content. But I'm saying, as far as new recorded content is being uploaded twice a week. So live. One is live, the other one is pre-recorded, and that's how we doing it, man. So go out there, confront your fears, learn from oneself, learn from other people, learn from the environments, grow. Sometimes it requires you to grow and then grow out of things. So we just want you to get more familiar with these terminologies, what it looks like, how does these things show up in your life. So now that you identify it, we can go and address and make that change within in the mirror, and then walk backwards from that mirror and let it be known that, hey, I want to change the things around me, but I'm also changing the things within me first. And then from there, all possibilities are possible. Man, I love you guys unconditionally, but love yourself even more. And we will be back next week with another episode dropping on Tuesday. We haven't figured out the exact times as of yet, but every Tuesday I'm gonna come up with a time. Right, this is new. This is only our second episode that we dropped on Tuesdays, right? Because it always been on Thursday, but we're gonna come up with a time shortly. And as of right now, to be on the lookout for Tuesday for a new episode of the Respectfully Great podcast, and look out for us on all those other platforms on Instagram, YouTube, StreamYard, Facebook, TikTok. Twitter, which is now X. Go to respectfullygreat.com, shop, like, share, subscribe, do all those things to make sure you get acclimated with our ecosystem of us being able to deliver the content and making sure that we can be in a place to where we can stay in constant communication. Also, I'm going to create in due time another not another community, but a exclusive community within the school. So in due time, I'm going to build that platform up, and I want you guys to come and share that experience with us, more intimate experience on our school platform. So I'm in the process of doing that. Shortly, we will have a community over there, and it's going to be great. And I think we're going to build great and wonderful things in the near future. And I know you guys are great. You are wonderful. And continuously go out there and develop oneself to be who you desire to be. Don't let nobody else tell you different. We are out of here. I love you. And I will see you soon next week on the Respectfully Great podcast. I holla.